Hello and welcome to the Comedian's Paradise. This is the podcast where we speak to scintillating, amazing, and charming individuals across the comedy world with fascinating, unique stories that are all like a Louis Theroux documentary. Now, today's guest is like Mount Everest. She is a lovely lady. She's got so many dimensions and layers to her. She's an amazing lady. She is a lady who can speak deaf. No, no, that's not the right word. No, she can speak sign language. She's fluent in sign language, British sign language, because there's so many different kinds of sign language. And she can speak English. And she can also speak fluent MCing and comedy, which are not many people that skilled at. Please welcome the fantastic Siobhan Dodd.
Myself. Oh, that's amazing. Thank you, Marvin. This is a delight to be here.
And what did you make of it, the intro?
I loved it. I speak deaf, and I speak deaf, and I speak MCing. Yes, I've got a case of MCD. Hey, welcome, Marvin.
Whoa!
Hey, I can't help it. I can't help it. Hey, what's your name? I speak MC. Hopefully speak funny as well. No, it's delightful. I'm really glad to be here. This is amazing.
It is. To be honest, I felt really dodgy territory here when I said speak deaf. That doesn't sound right. That sounds, no, I can't, that sounds something.
I mean, it isn't a technical term, granted. I'm fluent in British Sign Language. Probably is the more technically accurate way of describing it.
I don't want to. It's yeah. It's a bit like Muhammad Ali. Like we say this and that about like Americans and like, or he says, what's it called? People in America, in Africa, they can speak French, Portuguese,
Yeah,
and
I
English,
speak
and they
deaf
say in America they can't even speak English, but you can speak English and sign language.
and BSL. Yes, most of the time. Most of the time, I have a grasp on both languages. Yes. No, it's great. I am an interpreter. That is my job. But of course, as you know, I do comedy as well. Yes, in and out.
In and out. Like it's a
Yeah.
bit every now and then. But you're someone who's like you have quite a diverse performance background, and like you're from
Yes.
Guildford, and I think
Yes.
you started comedy in your mid or early 20s, and
Yes, I was 27. And I had been before that. I had a youth theatre background, so I had like a drama degree, drama and sign language degree, and I then qualified as an interpreter. So I spent most of my 20s kind of working towards getting fluent in sign language and qualifying in that. And then once I got like to 27 and I got that the little badge that says I'm a qualified interpreter, I was like, right, oh, so now I can put more energy into other things. And that's when I decided to try stand up.
what two questions there. What sort of led you to becoming wanting to be like a be a fluent be fluent in understanding the sign language, and what was the thought that made you, right, I want to get on the stage and make strangers laugh?
Okay. So they're two very different, yeah, supposed to be very different questions, but the comedy one first, it's linked, I think it's linked to the fact that I'm an interpreter. Because once I finally got that badge that was like, okay, you now are fluent in sign language. I mean, I'm not fluent, you're always learning. I'm learning new signs every day, as everyone is, but I interpreter status. Once I had that, I was like, okay, fine. I've now got a bit more time to focus on the performer side of myself. And I realized that it was important to have something where I could have my own voice. Because as an interpreter, you don't really have your own voice all the time. You are echoing other people's voices. Do you know what I mean? You're being their eyes and ears, and you don't have massively have your own autonomy. So I thought I need something for myself that will help me manage that. And that's kind of why I got into comedy. My mate Stu was running some gigs down at the Bowery, the old comedy bin, and I got him his first gig at an open mic night. I used to run a music open mic night, so I was a singer in a band with my dad and stuff, and I ran an open mic night in South London, and he did his first gig at my open mic night. Which was terrible because it was a music night and I got him doing 15 on his first ever gig. And he'd never done stand-up before, and the night wasn't even set up for stand-up. So poor guy, it wasn't the right environment for him. But then I lost my stand-up opportunity at his night because he had said, "Oh, you should try it," and other people had said, "Oh, you should try it." And then I was just like, "Yeah, I'm going to do it." New Year's resolution. I decided to do stand-up dressed as a bear. I used to dress as a bear back in the early days.
Ah,
Yeah, that was my starting point. And then after about 3 gigs as a bear, I was like, I'm gonna try and be a human. And I've mostly stayed as a human ever since. Um,
but that's
yeah,
fun.
but that's the comedy. That's kind of why I got into that. And it kind of, yeah, it was quite a natural progression for me really to go from singing and comparing a gig with a music gig to then going into stand up. But the interpreting question, do you want me to answer that as well?
Well, yeah. What was it that's because I've not come across many people that are sign language interpreters. So
Yes.
what was it? There's obviously, I think you mentioned it a while ago about there was some sort of event or something that came across that made you decide to become a sign language interpreter.
Well, I had a part-time job aged 17 working with kids with disabilities. And some of them were using like basic sign, like Makaton. And I saw that. And then one of my colleagues had said, "Oh, there's a course at Guildford College, stage 1 BSL course." And I just said to my mum, "Oh, can I do this course?" This was when I was in upper sixth, like, the second year of my A levels. And she said, "Yes, okay." And I enrolled in an evening class while I was doing my A levels, and it was great. And I realized I really, really liked it. So then I'd already sent off my university application. I wanted to be an actress, darling. I'd gone for drama schools. That was all I wanted to do. I didn't want to do anything else. And the drama school application process is rough. Like, no one ever gets in. You have 4 minutes to prove your worth, and you never do. And it's so competitive. So I wasn't having much luck with that. So my mom was like, "Look, can you not change your options? Can you go back and maybe try some universities instead?" And I found this course at Reading University that was drama, theatre arts, education, and deaf studies. And I thought, well, oh, that's drama and sign language. Perfect. Two things that I like. Let's go for that. So I was able to change my options to then apply for that. And then once I went there into Reading to start doing that course, I then made loads of deaf friends and started basically getting drunk with deaf people. And that's my 18 to 27. Well, to now, 18 to forever was just getting drunk with deaf people and getting involved with the deaf community, and that made me then progress to be an interpreter.
Mm. That's
Sorry, it's
really,
very long-winded, a bit waffly.
no, that's fun. Like it's because it's especially someone that knows you. Because one
Mm,
thing I will notice, and
mm.
I've spoken to like other comics like Steve McLean and like
Oh, I love
Ashley
Steve
and
McLean.
like
Mm.
we said this about like you and even Phil Henderson. Like we
Oh,
found like your likability in stage. Like when you're on stage, when you're hosting, like I've not seen anything like it. You make it seem like it's like people just warm to you and like it's just
that's so
and
kind.
maybe part of why you're like that is because you from a young age got to work with people that were less fortunate than yourself, so you got to maybe develop more of a attachment to people and seeing people as people. Because I know
See,
that
that's
with
mm,
Steve Best, he said with his friend who's a dwarf, like people
mm,
would look at him in a funny way because he's famous now looking differently.
mm.
And a lot of us don't often we see things from a certain way. We're not as understanding as perhaps we could be. Did that maybe shape you into the sort of warm person you are today?
That's very kind, Marvin. I mean, I'll take any praise because I'm attention seeking and in need of validation, as all comedians. But just be careful. So people less fortunate. I don't know. I wouldn't see the deaf community as less fortunate than
What's the
myself. I
word?
see them
Yeah.
more of a as a cultural and linguistic minority. And the
Ah,
deaf community themselves feel a bit like they don't want to be defined as a disability. They want to be defined as a cultural and linguistic minority, if that makes sense. It's just a different language and it's a different culture. Um, but yeah, I suppose. I mean, I just love people. I mean, it's nice that those comics said those nice things and they find me likable. Believe me, not every audience have always found me likable. I've had my fair share of dying. I mean, probably even at some of your gigs, Marvin, I think I've tanked before. Like it isn't. I don't think everyone is liked by everybody, and that's something I think I struggle with because I am a bit of a people pleaser and I do want to be liked by everyone. So it's nice if I can be, but it's not always the case.
But but yeah, as you said there, what you said there is you like people, and that's always come
Mm,
across when you're in
yeah,
gigs or with people. You're very relaxed, warm. You like to talk to everyone. You're friendly.
yeah,
I notice sometimes with people that they have a lot of guards, or they're a bit selective about who they talk to, or they if they
yes,
see certain things, they won't talk to people. And what,
yes.
as you said there, what I said about the deaf community is definitely from us outsiders, and I'm probably going to be disliked from what I just said there. But the
No,
thing
no, not at all.
is, I
It's a
noticed
good
that
opportunity. Mm.
a lot of people are like that. They see things through a certain lens, and they don't look beyond the different layers.
Yeah,
And and that's yeah, that you don't see people like that. You just like to have a laugh and be friendly, and that's what I like about
yeah.
you.
Great. Thank you, Marvin. And your gig, I mean, you obviously you do a great job. Beautiful gigs. And you know that I've fallen in love with Arthur's Cafe, and it's actually the only gig I've done for the last 3 months. Yeah, and I just all the people that come, they're all genuine people, and you're the one who puts the effort into getting them there, and it's great. You know, if I'm hosting a gig, I genuinely care about every audience member. And that's why actually intimate gigs are really good for me at the moment. I'm really loving the intimate gig. You know, I don't like these comics that turn up and they're really snobby about there only being 10 people. It's like, it doesn't matter there's only 10 people. Think about those 10 people that you've got there. Like Carol she's got a dodgy leg and she's come all the way in and she had a cough this morning, really didn't make it out, but she's here and she's having a great time. So get over yourself and do it for Carol.
Yeah, exactly. Like instead of focusing, if you do really well, you don't know who they know. If you
Yes,
put on a good show
exactly.
for them, they
Yeah.
may want to invite other friends to it. Or if they all come back, and that's the main thing.
Yeah.
If you put
Yeah.
that effort for one, like President Abunjo, he
Mm,
told me when he did a TikTok live,
mm.
um, only one person said they were going to come and see him do stand up, but they said they'll bring 50 people in. And word of mouth is the
Yeah.
biggest sort of proponent of getting people in. Like with Arthur's Calf, most of it's come through that. And
Right. Yeah.
with some of the people you saw last time in the improv night, nearly everyone there was mostly people that had been before.
Which is
Like
brilliant.
Aldo brought his friend up because he had such a good time, because it's
Amazing.
a nice
Yeah.
atmosphere. And that is
Yeah.
something that is neglected in a lot of comedy gigs, well, especially at the level that we're at. But even with
Mm.
some of the bigger ones, I feel they're a bit soulless because they get big
Yes.
names in, and
Exactly.
they're more detached. They got Groupon or Voucher, and they pay
Mm.
a lot of money to get the famous people. Even there, it's still a bit because I watched last week. I went into Top Secret. I watched Stuart
Oh,
Goldsmith.
really?
I
Okay.
watched
Yeah.
99 Comedy Club with Tom Lucy and lots of these big names.
Big names.
They're
Yeah.
very good with crowd work, but yeah, even the atmosphere is still. Yeah, you don't feel like you're part of anything.
No, it's not the same as the intimate gig. The intimate gig is a something to behold. It's something beautiful. And yeah, I think too many comics are a bit snobby about them.
But it is yeah it's one of those things, but it is
Mm.
what it is, isn't it? A lot of
It is. It is. But it's not for me. I think actually being a parent now, and I've struggled to get right back into my comedy rhythm since having both kids. I'm just happy to leave the house. Honestly, I'm just like I'm delighted to be out, and I'm not going to have a bad gig because I can't gig that much, so I can't afford to have a bad gig. I want to have a good gig. Sorry, what you're going back to about people, I've noticed not every comic is in it for the people. A lot of them are in it for the craft, and that's fine. And they're very, very successful, much more successful than me. But I would say that I like people and attention more than I like comedy itself. So that's I'm in comedy for that reason, rather than because I'm obsessed with pullback and reveals and all this technical comedy craft stuff. If that makes sense. I'm not a comedy purist.
yet the thing about comedy and that is, though there's a lot of it's extremely competitive and
Mm,
can be quite cutthroat. One of the
yeah.
things in it, there are some really unique and interesting people in it that
Yes.
that I really love about it, that do it and that come to
Yeah.
the shows.
Yeah.
That's one of the
Well,
things
yeah,
that
well,
make me keep
audiences
doing it.
and yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, I mean, you listen to the episode of Cat. Cat's quite interesting. She's quite
Yes.
wild.
Yeah. No, she was great. I was very interested to hear about her. Yeah. No, there's all sorts of walks of life, isn't it? And loads of you find all sorts. I'm in my 20s, and well, before kids, I would, drink with comics for hours on end after gigs. That doesn't happen anymore, does it? Is it just that I'm older and more sensible, or is the comedy circuit become less sociable?
Um, well, I've not gigged as much as I normally do, so I'm not
Hmm.
sure. But in the few gigs I have done, I was with PJ. Do you remember PJ? I mean, he went to
Yes.
Arthur's Cap a
Oh,
while ago
he's
and
an
they didn't like him.
institution.
He's an institution.
Yeah, he is. No, as in like a good thing. He's a classic sort of someone every comedian has to do a PJ gig. Remember, I did one of his once, and it went on till midnight, and there was only a couple of us in the room, and he did like 40 minutes between each act, and he would shout at you after your set about what he liked about it while the show was still running. No, but it's hilarious. He's hilarious. Yeah,
Oh,
he's
he is, isn't
he's
he?
someone to behold.
He is a character. I was
He
like,
is
I
a
remember at
character.
the Hecklers gig, he was talking very loudly and they were laughing when he was on
Yeah,
the phone.
yeah,
Yeah, he is a character.
he
He's
really
very
is.
unfiltered, and
Yeah.
he told me that that's gone. And me and him had a drink at a gig in Morden, but I think maybe
In
you're right.
Morden? There's a
You're
gig
right.
in Morden.
No, not Morden. Sorry, New Morden.
Oh, damn.
But it's still
You was at
fairly
home.
close.
I'm from Morden. That's why I got excited about that. End of the Northern Line. Sorry, Marvin, as you were.
But there might be. There is the Sound Lounge, which have something in Morden.
Yes, the sound. Yes, there was a gig there. There was a gig there last year, and I went to it because someone promoted it, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go, and I went to it as a punter. It was great, and I won a bottle of champagne because there was a raffle.
Whoa!
Yeah, I was very happy about that.
Did you drink all of it, or have you kept it on ice, or is
No,
it
we
like
had it. I can't remember why. We kept it for a couple of months, and then there was a reason to celebrate, so we drank it. It was great.
that place is actually a place down south that actually has a bit of soul to it, and the place
Yeah,
that I would actually want to put on a maybe a one-off gig. But they got so many musicians coming and so many people actually
yeah,
going into that place, so it's hard to actually
great.
get a show on there. But that
Yeah,
place has a
yeah.
bit of
It's busy. It was never
characters.
bloody open when I go past with the kids. I'm always trying to, take them different cafes, and they got good donuts that my son wants, but they never open. They need to open.
They
Well,
their home base is in Sutton, so
yes, and then they've got another one in Morden. Look at us doing good, plugging the local businesses of our area.
yeah, sound loud. You better pay me and Siobhan some money for this.
Exactly. And open, please. Give me a donut.
It's
Oh,
always interesting to come across places with a lot of characters. So it's
mm.
one thing I want to ask of you. Have you been to a place called Polici's?
Lychees. No, where is it?
It's in Bethnal Green, and it's an
Okay.
Italian slash greasy spoon
Mm.
where it's been run since the 1900s by a family,
Oh,
and
wow. Okay.
they had the craze there.
Yeah.
It's a place that has been going on for ages and has a real big community. They have like a massive line of people waiting to get in each afternoon, and it's
Oh,
got
okay.
tourists from across the globe. And when I
Yeah,
went
yeah.
in there, the food wasn't special, but the customer service was really something else.
Hey. Yeah. And they had, see, that's the thing with like comedy, isn't it? And emceeing and what we're talking about rapport and dynamics. Like, I don't think it's just like a thing between comedian and audience. It's like every single interaction, there's a spark and there's an energy. And sometimes, like you talk about this restaurant, obviously that's got it. When someone like waiter is really sort of magnanimous and wonderful, and makes people feel special. And it's that kind of magic you want to bottle up, and that's a thing that makes comedy nights special and makes parties special. It's every single interaction you ever have. That makes sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
did you come across a lot of that like growing up, or did you come across that often in restaurants or like events? Do you feel that that is something that's often
Yeah.
neglected?
Yes, yeah, that when and when you do find it, it feels really great. Like in tourism as well, when you go away somewhere and like, there's a tour guide who goes out of their way to make you feel great. Like it's just something that's really special. And I think that's what sort of I know that we certainly feel it about Arthur's Cafe when people come in. We really want them to have a good time. We're really invested. But there's other gigs where the promote it. I don't know where they don't. I think some comedians are not as much people, and they don't kind of necessarily focus as much on that side of things. They don't want to schmooze the audience and talk to everyone. Like it's it feels like an alien thing. Does that make sense? Like a lot of comedians aren't into that, and that's fine. They don't have to be, but I don't know. I think it's a nice thing. I think it's a good thing, and it makes people feel more invested in the
Yes.
show.
Well, that's something I'm actually trying to preach whenever I see people come down or try and like, because I see a
Yeah,
lot of it where it's completely different, and
yeah,
yeah, it's the reverse of that. They treat it like it's a job. They don't want them there, and it's
yeah. What the punters? They don't want the punters there.
like no, the actual comedy promoter and like the way it's set up,
Yes.
it's treated like it's a nuisance, not like something that's fun.
Oh, what they mean? The venues treat it like a nuisance.
Both the promoter and the
Okay. The promoter and the venue. Yeah, and they don't have that synergy and harmony. Yeah, that is a shame. It's a shame when that happens.
I'll be honest with Arthur's Cafe. You've known me for a while,
I
so
have. We've got many venues together. Mm.
so you noticed that I think I've gotten better over the years, but there is a
Mm.
I'd say I'll classify myself in that sort of bracket to a degree. I've gotten better and more comfortable engaging, having a laugh with people,
Yeah,
but I'd say there are times that I can get quite awkward or make a mistake. And one of the things about Arthur's Cafe, she's a very good people person. So if it's
yeah,
rather just me trying to engage with people, she's
yeah.
also doing it, and that's why we get return
Exactly. And
people
that's
well.
why Heckle Night is so good there because you got people that want to heckle and you got people that want to get involved. And it's lovely. And I think me and you are we almost like anti-comedians because
Yeah.
we actively say we want to fuck the comedians up. And then we do. With Heckle Night and with the improv night that was really good fun, given the comedians' topics they have to riff off. And it's really fun because it just throws them off their scent. I'm really delighted to be MC rather than, a spot. I'm trying to do that myself. It's very hard work. But yeah, they all do a great job. They did a wonderful job at last improv
They
night.
did. That was very
We stopped
impressive.
them getting too serious and too kind of just into their jokes. It's like, nah, come on, play. We've got to play with these people.
But you feel with some that I know even with the other improv night in 2016 and with this night,
Yes.
you always felt Marvin, what are you doing? You feel like I'm being quite cruel with some of it.
Oh my God. I was really glad. I'm worried about what happens at these improv nights when I'm not there because I was like the filter and you were writing these suggestions down and some of them I was like, fucking hell, Marvin, I'm not saying that. Oh my God. And I was like, you get cancelled. So yeah, I don't know if you've ever do you normally do those on your own without a person there to filter you? Because I fear for the public if that's the case. You
So
need a filter. I'm your filter.
we did one before, and
Hmm.
it was so I don't know if Yasmin told you about this, but there was a comedian called there's a should I say his name or should I not?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know the rest of the story, so I don't know whether
Well, he's a cool guy, and I don't think he would ever be a big deal, but I don't want to cause this.
issue beef.
But
Hmm.
yeah, there was a comic that came in. He was doing the improv night, and it was the first time well, one of the few times I'd done it without the one in Hammersmith, the videos.
Yeah.
And I started putting topics in, and someone put Liz Truss, and I found a topic of I was looking for topics, so I put together a
Hmm.
topic of anal bleaching and Liz Truss. So I gave it a topic of anal bleaching with Liz Truss. Yeah.
So she loves it.
I'm
She's
sure
got
she
more
does.
time in her hands now, and on her bum. I'm sure. Plenty of
Yes, it'll
time
be
for a bit of
clean either way.
hey. Yeah. Wow. And did this comic do the anal bleaching with Liz
Well,
Truss?
he knew it was an improv, and I told everyone about it, and it would be in the middle of the topic, and I stopped it. I said, "SL, it's your topic is I stopped, is anal bleaching with Liz Truss," and he was stood there for like a minute. What? And he was completely not knowing what to do. And he said, "You got me there. That was."
But even that's funny. I think like any riffing you can do at all, generally the audience are going to be with you, aren't they? They love it when you make stuff up, or they love
he
anything that appears spontaneous.
he did do it, but in a way it was funny because afterwards he got really wound up about it,
Oh
and he was
dear.
complaining to Yasmin and the people, like, "What's he doing with this and that?" And then afterwards, he was so angry. He wanted to say something at this and that, but he was just being polite, and he wouldn't want to say anything that would. So
Oh dear.
he left the gig and he shook my hand to have a good gig, and then left to on. He said, "I know this is a show. I hope I didn't offend you and this and that." But yeah, he was really.
Really angered by it. Oh dear.
And there was another comic who got really annoyed with
Yeah.
Stanley. And you know, Stanley's quite a brutal. He puts people
A good
down,
heckler. Yeah. One of our
and
regulars. Yeah.
he had to go like after 1 minute. Stanley was heckling him, and he had a brutal heckle at Stanley, and they said, "Oh, it's because of your hairline."
Oh dear.
And they laughed. Stanley didn't mind it, but like the comic really got wound up about it. He says, "I want to make sure people don't do this gig."
Oh my God. Come on.
Or no, did he say, "I'll mention it to other comedians gigs so they have to deal with it"? But he, oh,
Well, then we have it's the desired effect because I just think, God, don't take it all too seriously. I don't know. It's a difficult one because obviously comedians, it's a funny one because like some comedians obviously do 5 nights a week and they're really playing the long game and they really want to, they're on a journey and they want to progress and they go at it really business and they go at it really hard. And I get that and that's important. And there was a time where I was a bit like that. I'd say probably 2013 around that time, but I don't know. Now I rarely just see past the gig. I want to get better, of course, and I book the gigs in so that, especially if I've got a competition coming up or something, I will book in a gig to practice for that and get my set better and get material down. But I sort of think you just have to enjoy the gig. I sort of don't. I often really focus on the actual gig in hand and just being in that space and being present in that moment, rather than just being like, "Right, I'm going to do my set and then go." Uh, um,
yeah.
yeah, it's a funny one.
What? But you and me, we've both been in comedy a while. But like, what if you were going to speak to the young 27-year-old Siobhan now? What sort of surprised you coming in that you wish you would be prepared for?
Right. What surprised me coming in? There hasn't been anything unpleasant actually. If anything, I feel like I was expecting it to be more misogynist than it actually is. I have I've found the circuit to be more supportive than I expected it to be. And definitely a lot less misogynist. Yeah, I mean, it's still got a boys' club. There's still a boys' club mentality sometimes, and there's some clubs where there's just other comics and they're all male and they only laugh at each other's jokes, and it's got that kind of boys' clique about it where you tell some jokes and you just know they're not going to laugh. And I don't go down well at those places. I don't fit in there, and that's you still get elements of that, but it's not quite as prolific as I thought it was going to be. And genuinely, I think it's a meritocracy. The people that work hard do go places. And there's people I started in 2012, and loads of people I started out with are doing really well, as they should. It's like you see them go up this trajectory, and you're like, oh, they must have put in the requisite work. Um, so I think, yeah, I don't think there's any unpleasant surprises about it at all. If anything, I still know that I need to, if I really want to get progress, then I need to work a lot harder. And I keep believing that there's going to be some point in my life where I will do that. I don't know if I will or not, but like, I can be deluded and think that, oh, if I work hard, I'll get really successful. And I can put off finding that out by just not working hard.
And
I will work hard at some point.
let me let me know if you want this bit included or not.
Mm,
But just give a little sign or whatever. But I do. One of the things you said to me, I think a while ago, or I've seen you mention it on
mm.
stage. Oh no, I think it was at the Lovers in the Air comedy show.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
you told me something about comedians are quite mentally
Oh,
unhinged.
they're awkward. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. Comedians are. This is why I fit quite naturally with them, and as one. Yeah, we were a weird breed, and most comedians generally don't have that many social skills. Is that fair to say?
Uh,
Not in a bad way. I'm never gonna like stop alienate myself from every comedian and every promoter. They'd be like, "What? She said that." I made a joke about it, didn't I? I made a joke about comedians not having social skills.
There is something in there, and I haven't quite gotten to the bottom
Definitely.
of it. But
Mm,
sometimes when hear comics say that comedians are dickers or that, but it's often
yeah,
people who are actual not nice people that often say
yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah.
Maybe that's why I could no. But the thing is, I
No,
think
that
it's
they
like
are
any
nice
old.
people.
I think it's like any old workplace. Like the things I come across as a comedian and stuff that I found in hospitality or any sort of job that
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
come across. But I'd say we are maybe people that like. I spoke to a clown called Rennie Bazinet,
Mm,
and the thing that comedians share with clowns is that we tend to stick out and we don't
yeah.
necessarily always fit into regular
Yes.
society. And
Perfect. We're
that's the thing I
misfits.
would say.
Yes, and that's definitely true of a lot of comedians. And I mean, I didn't fit in as a child. I was bullied. I was the odd. I was eccentric, and it's a crowd of misfits. And I think that's why I love it, and that's why I really enjoy having comedian as a facet of my identity. But there's a lot of comedians who are a bit socially awkward, and I think that's not a massive, shock phenomenon because it takes a certain character to want to put yourself out there. Um, so many, I think there's a lot that are more introverted than extroverted, which is surprising. I'm obviously more extrovert. I'm quite extrovert, but yeah, there's a lot that are quite introvert and they actually don't find it easy to talk to people one on one, but do find it easy to get up on a stage and be funny. So it's fascinating, really. Fascinating breed.
Joseph Murphy's probably one of those because he does things, wild things that I never
Great.
expect anyone, and he's brilliant.
Yeah.
But when you talk to him off stage, like people always say this, that he can't look people in the eye.
Oh, but he's wonderful, isn't he? Lovely guy.
Very
Um,
funny.
Yeah, I love. Yeah, no, absolutely. Very a different persona on stage to off stage. But I say it's not persona. Persona makes it sound like it's put on. It's not. It's all there. It's all natural. It's just the way people are. People have different sides to them, don't they? I would say I'm quite similar on stage to off stage. So there's not you
Yeah.
don't get much of a shock seeing meeting me other way. I'm probably I'm a little politer off stage, and there's less swearing if I'm with my children. That's the main difference.
But they do hear it occasionally, don't they? No, I'm joking.
Oh God, no way! Not with my strict tiger dad husband, Asian headmaster. Like, even if I say things like crap or bloody, he's like language, and I'm like, really? But I don't say fuck.
Oh no, they hear it now. I'm joking.
That's not a swear word. Come on, poor guy. A
But
lot of challenges.
I, yeah, I think the one thing that is definitely true is we're misfits, and that
Yeah.
yeah, that's the bit that's definitely true. But also that comedy feels a need somewhere, because like I
Yes.
found that a lot of comics, even if they appear really confident or regular,
Mm,
I find that they've like I know some that have IBS or they have like Crohn's disease or they got some sort of anemic or they got some
yeah.
sort of condition or ADHD or
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. We've all got something.
with me, I've stayed with my parents for a very long time, but I've spent periods away, and so there's
Yeah.
bits of me that haven't developed. Like I've always not felt like I always felt like an outsider, not fitted into
Mm,
regular social groups. Like I
yeah.
prefer to have one or two friends rather than be part of a big social group. I've just
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
sort of fitted in, and that's I feel a bit of a need for that because I've always felt that people are better than me because they've done this or they've done that,
Yes.
and I do comedy because when you get on stage and you make people laugh, and what keeps me doing it is that one, it helps me deal with things. Two, you feel like a rock star when you make people laugh on
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah. Oh, but when you don't, that's the hard thing. The longer you
Yeah,
not find the longer you do it, the harder it is to keep up with your own standards. And I think actually that's why it's quite good that I was forced to take a break for having kids and the pandemic and stuff. And then coming back to it, I think I appreciate it a lot more. I appreciate the laughs. Whereas actually it gets to a point where the good factor of the laughs, they stop kind of reaching you because you're just used to them. And in order to feel that buzz, it has to be like an applause break or standing ovation, which is rare. you know what I mean? Because your own expectations of yourself get higher. So it's harder to get that buzz. And it's a bit more like, oh, everyone's laughing. Okay, job done. Rather than like, everyone's laughing. I'm buzzing. I'm buzzing.
Yeah. I,
Yeah.
I still get the buzz, but I do agree with this what you said there in terms of the
Mm,
standards. Like people
yeah.
will sometimes say to me when I've played the Zora character, I've done quite well.
Yeah.
They'll say you did well and this and that, but I'll feel like I could do a lot better.
You won't feel it exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one. But when you don't do well, you feel it as well. So there's the buzz. But God, when you miss the mark or when you die.
Well, at the moment, I feel I've not gigged as much as I normally do, but I played it a bit too safe. Like there's
Yeah.
bits I haven't.
Same.
One of the things is a. Did you ever watch Game of Thrones?
No, but I remember actually the same day as my 12-week scan with my son, I dressed up as Daenerys for you, Marvin.
Oh
I
yes,
emceed
that
your
was
Game of
brilliant.
Thrones gig. We did a Game of Thrones night, didn't we? It was
With
great fun.
Gaxis.
And I
Oh,
was
that
a
was amazing.
pregnant Daenerys. I could never fit back into that costume now.
Oh, that was amazing. Oh, that was
The
brilliant.
audience members knew it was one of those brilliant intimate nights where there was a few up for it pockets of people, and they were so on board with us, weren't they? They loved it. And one of them did say, "So you're expecting a baby?" And I was like, "How did you know? My scan's tomorrow. I just had the scan today, and I hadn't come out as pregnant." But they knew.
People
Oh, that
like.
was fun. But sorry, I was going to say something. You know, I forgot. Sorry, Marvin, crack on.
But the point that I was saying was Tyrion
Mm,
made a point to he's a dwarf in the Game of Thrones, and Jon
yeah,
Snow is a bastard, meaning that.
yeah,
So kept on calling him bastard,
yeah.
and he gave a bit of advice to him. Like he said, remember what you are, the rest of the world won't, because otherwise it'll be used to hurt you.
Yes.
But if you have a
Oh,
weakness or a big fault or something that really hurts you, if you, like Joe Brand does when she makes fun of this and that, it
yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
hurt me as
yeah,
much. That is
yeah.
something that I've played too safe in comedy at the moment.
Yes.
I've
Yeah.
not addressed or attacked because there are things that I haven't yet brought out on stage
Yeah.
that I'm really. It's nothing too weird. It's just something
Mm.
that really hurt that I'm really insecure about, and I want to
Yeah.
sort of get past that. If you get past that, then
Yeah.
you can be more freer in it and it not hold you back as much.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
what I've not done on stage recently. And
Yeah.
because I've gigged for a while, maybe I've gotten a bit too comfortable. And
Yeah.
when Arthur's calf, I feel a bit nervous about doing that
Mm.
because if I will that side of myself, maybe they won't like me and I'll lose some more audiences. But
And it's important. Yeah.
maybe I should well, we're doing the Hecklers night on May the 3rd, but
I'm back with you. Yeah, this week.
it would be
2
funny
days
to.
before my birthday. My
It,
last gig as a 38-year-old. Fucking hell. Maybe I'll have more grey hairs. Oh.
and
um. Yeah. No. No.
we'll celebrate in style. We'll get lots of Jaeger bombs and.
Oh my God. Wow. Wow. But you know what? Back in the day, before kids, we probably would have done. I would have had Jaeger bombs with audience members and acts until long into the night. We need to bring that back if I can handle it. I can't handle it as much. But yes, this idea of exploring sort of your insecurities on stage. No, I'm up for doing stuff more like stuff like that as well. And after having the kids, I kind of wanted to do material that wasn't just about cock. Um, I have managed to generate some material that isn't about cock, so maybe I'll go down that route eventually. But it's tricky because if you're booked to do a 10, you've got to do a good 10. And some of my strongest, oldest material I know is a banker is cock based. So there's traps. So how do you ever get out of being a cock based interpreter?
It's you have all these fears and
Oh,
insecurities and you're worried about losing
immediate.
what
Yeah,
you yeah.
exactly.
That's something I want to get to, and I think the only way for me to do that is I think next few weeks just book a lot of gigs and just focus on doing that thing, because if I try
Yeah,
and put it off till later, then I'll probably
yeah,
avoid doing it. So if I maybe do that at the start of my set, attack the weakness.
yeah. And see how it goes. And be prepared for it to die. That's the problem. New material. I am such a procrastinator for new material. Like I put off writing like it's no man's business. I really do. I'm terrible for it. And then I really have to force myself to write.
But
And actually, when you do write a new bit and it works, it's amazing. So yeah, it's about being brave and just taking that plunge, isn't it? It's fear of failure, isn't it? Fear of failure is the thing that holds everyone back. It's the reason why Candy Yee once said, that procrastination is because of fear of failure. That's why you procrastinate. That must be what's at the heart of it.
I think one thing also it's what was the thing I wanted to say? Yeah, I've forgotten already now. I forgot what it is. Yeah, I think it's just, yeah, I think it's just a difficult thing to do, and I think that's the thing that I'm gonna one of the aims I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
Just because then it can't hold you back as much.
Yeah. You're more free.
Now, one of the things that one thing I often hear, this is a myth from people, and they say that people change, or like kids make you more warmer, more attached to things. I've
Yeah.
seen some cases of it where that is the case, but also seen other cases where you're the same prick I knew before. But
Made you a bigger cunt.
no, but you're
I mean, it does give you a bigger cunt, I think. Yeah. You know,
oh, I could have.
the amount of
Oh,
blood
yeah.
that comes out, the amount of organs that spill out.
Oh, sorry. It is definitely.
You're gonna make a big opening. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that you've also got kids, and like you sort of came back into comedy after, how did it sort of change you as a comedian when you approach comedy? You mentioned it a bit earlier in the podcast, but
Yeah.
how did that change you in terms of when you be a sign language interpreter, be a comedian, but also like in your general interactions with people?
It does change. It does change you massively, I think. And there's many ways it changes you. One interesting one is I think before having kids, I, as a woman, possibly brainwashed by the patriarchy, I always sort of believed I had to be sexy, and I would play on that. I'd play on being sexy. And then I had kids, and I was like, I'm not wearing a short skirt. I just because well, A, because I'm more prone to pissing myself these days if I jump up and down, and I'm a high energy act, so that's the real risk. So I suddenly felt no pressure to be sexy at all because I'm a mother now, so it's not necessary. In a way, that's sad because actually, it's quite fun, but it's actually also quite liberating because you're just like just a mother. So you can just be that, and you don't have to be attractive. I never had to be attractive before, but there was probably this weird patriarchal brainwashing that was like, oh, you must be attractive, you must do this and play that card, which I think I did in like my late 20s and early 30s. But then having kids changed that. I do think it possibly does make you warmer because you're more relatable. Suddenly you can relate to loads of audience members. And that's why gigs that are like full of real punters, being a parent, I think is great because you can really relate to those people. But gigs where it's mostly other comics, no, that isn't going to make you any more relatable because they're mostly not parents. I think it also made me more vulnerable, actually. It's weird because it's made me more powerful and more vulnerable at the same time. So before I would do a gig and walk home, whatever, not care. I was just like, whatever, I'm indestructible. But I remember when Kian was a baby, I did like only a couple of gigs in my maternity leave, one of which being yours with him in a sling at 8 weeks. That was
Oh, yeah.
bonkers. Oh, I remember that night. Anyway, yeah, I did a gig where it was in the middle of nowhere, and I left the venue and I was like, I'm getting a cab. I just didn't want to do this walk along alleyways and stuff to get to the station because I think I just felt a little more scared because I was not that I was worth more, but like I was breastfeeding and just thought, no, I'm not risking it. I'm just not risking it. So it's definitely changed me in that respect. And it's changed me in terms of comedy. I have to be more selective about the gigs I do. I don't have time to do bad gigs. So I really just want to do good gigs, and I want to do gigs that make me happy. Because I think, yes, you've got to get better and you've got to progress and you've got to die and you've got to do the bad gigs, but I think you've also got to enjoy yourself at the same time. So I don't have enough time, energy, or headspace to be like gigging every night, and I would rather put lots into one gig a week than spread myself too thin, 5 gigs, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And you really focus on those gigs as well. Like last year when I was gigging, when I got back into gigging, I would film myself at every gig. So I would learn from it. And then you're actually being proactive about your gigging. You're being reflective afterwards, and you're actually making sure that you improve. rather than just gigging loads and not reflecting and not trying to learn from it. That makes sense?
Yeah, I think
Mm,
there's two articles on comedy that have been written out there. One
mm.
says that household culture is ruining comedy, but one also says that the ones that have made it have worked really hard at it.
You say
But
household culture.
yeah, there was two on Medium that I saw a while that went quite viral.
Yeah.
Uh, I interviewed one of them. I think was it Matt Ruby? I think it was
Mm,
him. Let me double check. I put him on a podcast and I give me
yeah.
1 second. But I think there's an element of both, like reviewing it, but then working very hard at it as well. I think they're both. If you apply an element of both, that's what I've seen in terms of the people that have made it somewhere.
Yeah.
So I remember um, one comic used to gig a lot, but they didn't get anywhere, and I tried that as well. But
Yeah.
like you got to pick the right kind of gigs, like
And you've got to
not
be
the
reflective. You've got to be a reflect. This is something that is similar to interpreting. When you're becoming an interpreter and improving, you have to be, they call it a reflective practitioner. So I think you've got to do the same with comedy. But I feel myself, but I won't let myself watch it until 2 days after because I want to enjoy the buzz. So if I've enjoyed the gig, I particularly won't watch it for like 2 days after because I really want to enjoy that feeling. And then when the buzz has died down, I will watch it and then go, okay, this could be improved. This could be improved. That's great. Well done. And if I've had a bad gig, I think I leave about 3 days because I want to forget about it. And that's when I pluck up the courage to watch it and think about what could have been better. And often, actually, when you do watch it, you realize it's not as bad as it was. But I think it's that kind of, yeah, that's what I mean by being proactive, like proactive giving, to actually giving and trying to refine the refine your sets, etc.
so yeah. I think it's a combination of both. Like I
Mm,
think that, and one of the main reasons for saying that is I bumped into Nigel Unn
yeah,
before he became Uncle Roger, but when he
yeah,
started to build a following, and he has like
yeah,
40,000 Instagram, and he said to me when I spoke to him, like he became a pro comic and he was signed by Off the Curb and he was doing
yeah.
pro gigs like Comedy Store, and
Mm,
he said that he had a full-time job. And like, you have a full-time job? And he said, yeah,
wow.
I don't want to be poor and in London. Now,
Yeah,
the thing about that, he worked very hard, but he worked smart. If you
yeah,
be able to do that a full-time job and comedy,
yeah.
that's why he's successful where he is. Because I know that there's
Right.
some comics that all they do is comedy, but they got
Yeah,
nowhere near as much success as he does.
yeah. That's interesting.
That's why I believe in
Thing.
being. I think you've got to look back at things and try and find out where you're going wrong.
Yeah,
But you can't just gig and write and just and burn out. I think
yeah,
there's a degree you've
exactly.
got to get it right.
And also, you've got to, I think the sort of way my journey is, I mean, look, there's times when, obviously, I started in 2012. I look at, sometimes you turn on Live at the Apollo and you're just like, oh, bloody hell, they started gigging like 3 years after me. They're on this. And you can, I think a slippery slope is to go down that comparing yourself to others' journey. I think it's very unhealthy. Everyone does it to a certain degree, but it isn't a good thing to do because everyone's on their own journey. And I've always been like, I'm doing life and I'm prioritizing life and comedy is fitting into my life. But I haven't at one point well, not that often have I let comedy kind of take over. Does that make sense? So I prioritize, interpreting and my family and living, enjoying life, holidays, parties, but also gig as well. And at some point, maybe I'll do more gigging than the other things. But I think some people just focus on the end game and the becoming a pro comic and they're gigging all the time and you're right, they do burn out and they don't possibly don't get to enjoy the journey because it's good to have a goal, but you've got to enjoy the journey and how you get there as well, haven't you?
Yeah, that's part of the fun of it. But
Yeah, exactly.
it's because it does take away from. So what you said there is quite interesting, and this
Mm,
is a bit that I'm going to get more into in my life and a lot of things because
mm,
there's a channel called Valuetainment by
mm.
Patrick Bet David, and
Okay.
I watched a video on him, and he said when he's made big mistakes and like, or he's not got what he wanted, he said, "I blame this person or blame that," but
Yeah,
and you get quite bitter. But it's
yeah,
more that he's sort of understood it, and it's more a bitterness in the decision he made rather
yeah,
than anything like that. If you get done over or if something bad happens to you, it's not always the case because you can't
yeah,
control it, but in a lot of cases, you've played some part in the bad thing happening,
Yeah, of
and
course. Yeah,
you've got to be
own
bitterness
that.
at the decision you made rather than
Yeah.
like the other things, and figure out
Yeah.
how you can move on and sort that out. And there's also something from I watched a podcast with Joe Rogan and Guy Ritchie, and he says
Mm,
being a master of your own kingdom, and he read a book called um, Extreme Ownership by Jocko
mm,
Willink, who's a very
yeah.
smart, great guy. And it's a book that I'm going to start reading a lot more of and try and apply to
Mm,
myself. Is that being responsible for like whatever's happened, you've made mistakes, move on from
yeah.
it, and just look at how you can own that decision
Yeah.
and go forward from it. And it
Yeah.
ties back to what Tyrion Lannister said about owning your weaknesses.
Own your weaknesses. Yes, I like that. Own them because they're part of you. Yeah. They're your gifts and your strength. They're your strengths, really.
But I'll
Sorry,
tell
that
you,
sounds a bit wanky.
I'll be honest though, if I bring in a date to one of our gigs in Arthur's Cafe, I may change a bit of my act. Having said that, I don't know.
Do it. Oh, I would treat her very nicely.
Do you think I should tone down my? No, I don't know.
Zorro, bring a date to Office Cafe. That would be very exciting. Alfie used to do that. Oh, bless him.
Did he?
Alfie brought dates to Dirty Dick's. And of course, we then would spend all the comics that all knew him would spend the entire night roasting him in front of his face. But yeah, he did it all the time. Silly sausage.
I've, I've,
Oh,
I don't know. I feel when you have your family or people you know at a gig, it makes it a lot harder. But I can't think
yeah.
of anything else I do that's interesting to bring in
I
to,
know,
to
I know.
that they would would it be a boring just straight cinema date?
No, Heckle Night certainly would be a good date.
Oh God.
Oh. Although
Oh,
you don't actually get to speak to the date then, but
that's true.
surely. Oh.
Now, what um what's the things I wanted to say? Now, one of the things you said that you like people, is that something that's and you love people, you love interacting, you're loving fun and seeing where things
Mm.
go. But how did that sort of happen? Was that something that happened in an early age that you've always loved interaction, having
No,
fun, or is that just something you've grown into?
I think well, because I was a weird child. I had a neurodiversity that is as yet undiagnosed. So I had like a TA and stuff and extra time in exams, and I was like, a weird kid. So as a child, I didn't have a lot of friends, but then suddenly I did. I think, I know what it is. I discovered drama. My mum got me into drama at age like 8 and then 10, and I did youth theatre, and that gave me loads of confidence then and gave me loads of friends. And I think it was from then that I started getting very sociable and loving people. So it's sort of grown from then, really, I would say. And I'm from a big family as well, so that helps. And I'm musical, we big musical family. Um, so maybe, yeah, I don't know. Is it an innate thing? Because I'm still an oddball, but I'm just an extrovert, sociable oddball, rather
But you
than
accept it.
an introvert one. Sorry.
You accept it and you enjoy it.
Yeah, I do. I do. So I thought when you sent me the prep questions, you were asking about whether like what was it about? If I was surprised by anything comedy, or is there anything I would do differently? That's what you asked me earlier. Sorry, if there's anything I'd do differently, and I think no, and I think like my personality just generally lends itself to comedy, and I was mental before doing comedy. I would be out all night and chatting to people on the night bus. So actually, chatting to people in a gig setting is no different. It's just it's a very natural extension for me, I think.
Hmm. That's something that maybe I need to go out more. But uh,
I
yeah,
don't go out much now.
but yeah, that's something that I don't see as much with. I think one thing I found with doing the comedy gigs and when I'm emceeing,
Hmm.
maybe this is being ageist, but you could maybe rip me apart if this is the case.
Okay.
But I found that people, once they've reached their sort of maybe 30s or a bit older and above,
Mm.
they seem more loose and more carefree and
I
more
mean,
able to.
I've had two
I,
kids, so I'm definitely more loose. 100%.
but I I feel some with interactions, people are a bit less uptight than perhaps like in
Yes,
your teens and late 20s or early
of
20s. Like
course.
people are a lot more. And when I'm emceeing or engaging, like in the last gig in Arthur's Cafe, with
Mm.
the, do you remember Palan?
Yes.
Well, him and his
Yes, I
friend
haven't
came
seen him for
round,
years.
but
Yeah.
they were absolutely hilarious, like to
Mm.
engage with on stage with.
Mm.
And I think part of that comes in, like you become more at home with yourself, and you're
That's
more.
perfect. That's
And
it.
they were hilarious. Like throughout the
Yeah.
gig was a bit of a difficult one, but in terms of who to interact with and get the funny bits out of, I spent a lot of times talking to them because I knew that
Yeah.
they would say something funny and wild, and they'll
Yeah.
be more relaxed to just take the piss and not care about things.
Yeah. 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 No, I think there's definitely some truth in that. I think as you get older, you are more comfortable in your own skin and you've got more world experience and you've got more tools in your toolkit because you've got more well, you've had more interactions. So when it comes to a situation like you're an MC interacting with an audience, you're probably going to be better at it because you've just got more tools in your kit. More kind of you can remember a time where someone might have said this to you and you came back with this quip. Like you've got that there. You've got. I think it's yeah. I do think that's probably a fair assessment. And also you possibly give less fucks as you get older as well. I do give quite a lot of fucks. I'm a people pleaser, but I don't know. I also am a little bit like, okay, well, this is me. Yeah, sorry, that ain't changing. And that's possibly quite an important thing. Because if you give us, if you give loads of fucks every time anyone says anything to you, then that's going to hold you back a little bit. I think
Hmm.
I'm probably being quite contradictory because on one hand I'm a people pleaser, on the other hand I'm saying don't give any fucks. But yeah,
I think what it is with you, you like to have a laugh and entertain people, but you're not bothered
yes,
if they think you're a bit wacky. What you
no,
are
yeah, because
bothered
I
by
am.
is if people dislike you or they start trying to be nasty or being against you.
Yes,
That's what but you're not bothered if people think you're a
yes.
bit odd. You just want to have
Oh
fun.
God, no! It's a fair assessment. I mean, my first gig I was dressed as a bear. I've done gigs dressed as a giant penis like this. I'm
Me too.
definitely a bit odd. That's something I want. I like to own. And actually, I need to get odder again. I've gone a bit too tame in my motherhood years. um, yeah. Oh, I was going to say something. No, I think I've forgotten it. Um,
What
yeah, a fair assessment.
what's the most before we go, I'm gonna ask you like what's the biggest thing you've learned in life that you'd like to pass on to whoever's listening to the podcast? And number
Oh,
two, what is it about, what do you love about your kids? Like in terms of like their different personalities and handling them and learning about them. Because
oh
one
my
thing
goodness.
I found interesting at my other job is that
Yeah,
each person I interact with is a different person. So if I'm
exactly.
trying to interact with them, engage in one way, not all of them like it. So you've got to do what
Yes.
they like rather than what's.
Yes, which is why I think that is very relevant for comedy. Because I think if you just have one style, like I've seen acts with just like one style and they come into a gig with that's their jokes and those jokes can really kill in one setting, but in another setting totally can't. But the problem is they can't adapt. There's a brilliant sign for that actually, which sorry, you won't be able to see it if you're listening at home. It's one of these concepts that comes across really well in BSL but not in English. You need to be able to adapt to the person you're speaking to and the room you're playing and the audience you're with. Yeah, and actually some are just one way, and that doesn't necessarily isn't going to work with everybody. So I think that's important. Oh, this question, there's so much to the question I can't process. I mean, I want to talk about imposter syndrome. That's an important thing, and that's something I suffer from. But you might not realise because you're always booking me, which is great. And you actually, Marvin, have kept me doing comedy. People like you, Kyle Wallace, and G&B, like lovely promoters who, I would be or fallen off the wagon and just properly in mum mode on maternity leave and get a message being like, "Can you come and MC this gig in a couple of months?" And I'm like, "Shit, no, I can't. I've forgotten how to do it." But I don't say that to you. I say, "Yes, Marvin, I can," and then I turn up. And I'm as surprised as you are when I'm funny. Because this links to what you're saying about one way. As an MC, I've learned not to do material. So I don't do material at your gigs anymore because it's got to be all about the crowd, all about working with them and letting them come out of the shell and making the room work rather than like, these are my jokes, I'm funny. For a set, that's great, but for MC, I don't do that anymore. Yeah, and it's all kind of ad-libby, and I'm honestly as surprised as you are when it works because the problem is it's a gamble because it's not like material that you know is tried and tested. It's an interaction that is happening live, and you've got to just respond to stuff that's happening. And if they're not giving you anything, you can't respond to it. So it's all a bit more risky. But sorry, the question I've gone off on one. The question is, you want to know about my kids? Okay, so we'll come back to that. And the biggest life lesson I've learned in life ever.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I used to quote Richard Herring as my mantra. If you throw enough shit at a wall, some of it's bound to stick. Which he talked about in terms of like finding a partner and saying that his wife was the shit that stuck. I think that's true for that was my mantra for a while, and it's true for a lot of things. You think you've got to try things and you've got to push yourself, and you do have to try and achieve your goals, but at the same time be kind to yourself and try. You've got to enjoy the long term, have a long term goal by all means, but enjoy the present as well. And I mean, this could be why I'm less successful than a lot of people I started out with, but actually, yeah, you've got to, there's no point just working yourself to the bone. You've got to enjoy life, enjoy the moment. Does that sound like a life lesson? Or does it sound like me talking shit?
Both. No, it's good. It's good. No, it's good.
Shit against the wall. Yeah, just try things and actually, when you get all insecure and in your own head, very easy to do that. It's very, very human. But more often than not, other people don't really give a shit. Like this thing that you said that you think is going to massively cause a big problem, they've forgotten about it already and they don't care. And actually, comedy, I think being an interpreter and a comedian helps because really the comedy, like if I make a mistake in interpreting, like in someone's hospital appointment, that's going to have a big impact. So I've kind of got to be sharp with that and got to own that and make sure that doesn't happen. If I make a mistake in comedy, whatever, it only reflects badly on me. That's all. And yes, that hurts and it's not nice and it feels horrible, but no one's going to die. So I say, be brave, allow yourself to fail, and throw that shit at a wall, basically. And my kids, do you want to know about my kids? Do you want to meet them before we go?
I don't mind. Yeah, maybe you could say hello. It's up to you.
Yeah, okay. Oh. Let me see. I'll just text Dave and ask him to bring them up, so they can have a little guest spot.
Oh.
You want to bring the kids up to say hello? Sorry, that's dictation. This is no fun for the viewers at home. So hear me doing some parental admin there. I also text my husband that I used dictation for because my hands hurt, so I can't type because of the sign. Yes, the question was about my kids, about them, what their characters.
What's so? What have you learned in terms of people through kids?
Good
for
question.
Having kids.
Okay, I think what's good about having kids, it's actually similar to what was good about the pandemic, and everyone was forced to press the reset button. So with Kian, I was still gigging loads up until about 8 weeks before I went on maternity leave, and I was still out all the time, and I was very much a person who hadn't had kids yet, a pre-pandemic person who hadn't had kids. And then when I had Kian, my elder boy, it was like pressing the reset button. Like suddenly everything was stripped back to basics. You're no longer going out to the pub all the time, and you enjoy really simple things like having an apple crumble with custard in front of the telly. Like that became the new kind of, wow, this is amazing. But that's a good thing. It suddenly makes you appreciate everything a lot more. It's a bit like going camping where you're struck down, you strip down to basics, and and you enjoy it. You find that sort of liberating and fun for some reason. And the pandemic was the same. The pandemic, we had all our freedom stripped away, and actually, lots of people were quite liberated by that, I think. And they actually were like, "Oh, this is quite nice. I don't have to go here. I don't have to go there. Quite nice to be forced to just stop." And I think kids make you do that, so that's a good thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's been Siobhan, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if they want to find out about you, Siobhan, how do they find out about you and how do they get in contact?
Oh, goodness me. Well, I'm on Facebook. I'm a bit shit at the old social media. I'm on Facebook and I will be publicising my gigs there. I am a regular, I'm fortunate enough to be a regular MC at Marvin's wonderful night at Arthur's Cafe. So please come on down, check out Instant Laughs and come on down to, it's mostly Heckler's Night. Heckler's Night and the Improv Night that I love. In fact, I probably get very jealous if any other MCs do your heckle night. I'll be like, who's that MC? Let me in. So you can find me there. I think my son might be coming up to say hello, but that's all going very slowly. Yeah, you can find me there or in Morden. I'm generally in Morden, so you can actually find me in person. Normally hanging around Morden, chasing after children.
Oh, okay. That's where you go, guys.
Oh.
If the kid comes in before, I'll add it in later on where they say hello to you guys. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know where he is. My husband, I text to say he said he could send him up. I'll see if I can hear some footsteps. Oh, I think he's coming. I think he's coming. Back in. That's my oldest son, who you've met before, Marvin, when he was 8 weeks old, and I stupidly thought I could do a gig. and I emceed your dating show with the baby. Yeah, that was a silly thing to do. Oh, he's taking too long. I think it takes a very long time to get my kids to do anything.
Oh, okay, no worries.
They missed the opportunity. Never mind. In a way, we should be grateful they haven't interrupted us halfway through.
Not yet. We've put it in now.
I know. Oh, wait, we've given him enough time there to. Oh, hang on.
No.
No. Let me just check the door. See if I can... Come on, come on.
Oh,
he's heard. He wants to say his joke. This is
what was in the sky?
I don't know what was in the sky, Ian.
What's in the sky? It's a logo.
No.
Oh,
that's his joke. What wobbles in the sky?
Oh,
a jellycopter.
Oh, okay.
His favourite joke, isn't it, darling?
Brilliant.
You ran up here to say that joke, didn't you, darling? Yeah, there we go. He literally ran from through the door and said, "What was in the sky?"
No, let's. We want you to do it in the right way. So let's start it again. You start it off again. Let's do it again.
Okay, say the joke again, Kian. What's your favourite joke?
What was in the sky?
What wobbles in the sky?
Yeah.
What wobbles in the sky? Tell me.
Helicopter.
Brilliant.
That's brilliant.
Right, isn't he?
That's brilliant.
Get the spot.
We're going to put you in for a comedy show. How does that sound?
Would you like that? Yeah, he's nodding.
Let's do that. Well, guys, you know where to go to find out about me and the podcast, and you know where about Siobhan. Make sure you give the podcast a 5-star review on Amazon or iTunes. And do you have any last words?
Do you have any last words to say before the podcast finishes?
What a podcast?
This is a podcast. So is there anything, if people are listening to this at home, listening to the radio, what would you like to tell them about life?
That when pigs go in water, it's their sun cream.
When pigs go in water, it's their sun cream.
It's not a joke, Jack.
It's not a joke.
Oh, okay.
It's a good fact. There we go.
Oh.
There we go. We learned something about pigs.
All right.
Here's something.
Okay.
Do you know why the duck crossed the road?
Why did the duck cross the road?
Poop in its farts.
To poop in its farts. Okay, I think that's probably
Okay.
that's
Well,
it.
guys,
Things are getting a bit X-rated here, so we probably
okay.
better call it
I
a
hope
day.
you've
Mark,
enjoyed it, and
thanks,
I'll see
darling.
you in the next episode, guys. Okay.
Thanks so much, Marvin.
Yes.